I think we should share with everyone how we reconnected. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
everyone is asking, so.
Do you want to go first? Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. Today, we have a very special guest, Danielle Ruhl, who is from Love is Blind and my ex-wife. Today, you're going to listen to a part one of a two-part series where we're going to discuss everything from our entire experience before Love is Blind, during Love is Blind, after the show filmed, all the way through when the show came out. For today's episode, we're going to talk everything of our mental health throughout the entire process. We're going to talk about things that happened at each stage that were some production related, some personal related. And in today's episode, we'll take you all the way through our wedding day and through what our wedding day experience was like. Then after that, we will go and next week have an episode where we talk about everything from the day after our wedding through the show airing, all the way through our divorce, and then what our status is now. Enjoy this week's episode, little bit of a cliffhanger, and then we'll be back again with the rest of this interview. So thank you so very much for listening, and I hope that this helps you go through your life. I hope this helps you go through life, your eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest on the show. She's an associate marketing director, mental health advocate, Love is Blind Season 2 alumni, and my ex-wife, Danielle Ruhl. Thank you for coming on the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan.
Thanks. Same as you. Today, we're going to really dive into a lot of what our experience has been since, a little bit before going on Love is Blind, through Love is Blind, all the way up through where we are today. But before we do that, I think it's important to ask everyone sort of a break the ice question, and I'm going to ask you too. So what did you want to be when you were growing up, and how did that lead you to where you are now?
For some reason, and I don't know what my parents did to contribute to this, my brother and I both grew up wanting to be magicians, and that pivoted pretty quickly after no one from the neighborhood would come to our magic shows. But starting in high school, I started wanting to be either in broadcast journalism, or advertising. So when I went to college, I was in both journalism classes and advertising classes, and then ultimately chose to major in advertising, which I do now, in case you didn't know.
I didn't know any of that, actually. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I knew that. But I think it's a funny story because when everybody's younger, they always have these sort of like ambitious, fun things that they want to do, like being a magician. But you figured it out a lot sooner than most.
How do you think being a magician could impact someone in advertising today? What do you think like the correlation is?
I think magic is still pretty cool, and you should definitely do some campaigns.
I think it's awesome.
Before we get into the details, I think we should share with everyone how we reconnected. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's everyone is asking. So
do you want to go first? Talk a little bit about the Business Insider article and.
Yeah. So Business Insider reached out to a wide breadth of people from all seasons, cast, crew, etc. And when it came out, Nick and I were both named as sources in the article. And then since then, we've been sharing.
I'm Nick, right? You were like, Nick and I were named. I'm Nick. So we were named.
This isn't the first time I've answered this question, okay? No, so it was interesting when the article came out that you and I, so weird to say, we had the same exact answers to the same exact stories. Every time we do an interview, it would be us talking about the different things that we had experienced, and it was us kind of supporting each other from afar.
The weird thing for me, like the moment for me was, there were two moments. One, when I found out that you were going to be part of the article, like I knew, but I didn't know. And when I found out, I knew, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I am putting myself right back in the lion's den. And, it was really a culmination of things. But like the second one was we were both interviewed and on Inside Edition. And seeing that was just like, that was really the first time that I had
Yeah.
seen you outside of like my own personal photos that pop up on my phone all the time. So it was hard, but it like, triggered a whole bunch of like feelings and stuff like that. So it was very surreal. And what were you like before that moment? Were you in the limelight? I don't even know. Like,
No, I was trying to just, it was weird. So I was actually just talking with one of my friends about this too. It's like the further away from the show I get and the more I focus on my like pre-life, the better I get. And
mhm.
so before the article, it was kind of all dying down. I wasn't talking about the show as much. I was just focusing on like my job that I had before everything. And then this came out and it just like the repressed traumas of the show and then our names are connected again and then we're
Mhm.
supporting each other from behind the scenes without actually communicating. It was tough.
Yeah, I think it's important to tell everyone because people think we like talked, and we probably could have put together an elaborate marketing campaign here, but
Uh-uh.
that wasn't the case. We hadn't, there were a few text messages exchanged, but we hadn't talked since maybe September or maybe October. That one time we randomly ran into each other, but there was not much communication after that at all. Very, very logistical when it was.
Yeah, there was no even phone call conversation. We ran into each other in September. Going to this was weird. I feel like we always have these. I'm not going to go into that, but we have these like weird
No,
coincidences.
it's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's like we have these like weird coincidences where we should have ran into each other and we didn't. And randomly, we had an appointment at the same TMS place at the same time. And we like literally, like, I'm driving my car. He's on a scooter in front of me. I don't know how to react because it had been a long time since I've seen him. I'm like, beep, beep. I'm like, Nick. And I'm like, what did I just do?
You scared me. I actually thought I was about to get hit by a car. Do you remember? I was startled.
You were terrified. I was like, it's me.
Yeah, it was weird, but it was, yeah. And for those of you who don't know, TMS is a magnetic treatment that helps people with depression and anxiety. If that's something you want to look into, I mean, I recommend it. I know it made a
Yeah.
difference for me, but yeah, definitely check that out. And it is covered by insurance. So yeah, we were both doing that. That was something we were going to try and do together before everything went the way that it went. But the other thing is Nick Vile decided that he was going to call you and me out specifically and throw some mud and be a little bit of a name caller. And that was when I really got like fired up about this
Same.
stuff because I mean, it was hard seeing you on Inside Edition. It was hard being brought back into this world because I too was removing myself from it. I was focused on my podcast. I was focused on my schooling. I've been focused on, trying to find another job because I lost my job. And I haven't cared that much to really, be an influencer, stay in the limelight. I just want to use the platform that I have to try and help as many people as I can and make a difference. And I know you're the same way. And being pulled kind of back into this the way that we were was like a little bit culture shock for both of us.
Yeah.
When I got away from the limelight, when you start to get recognized less or people don't really know what they know you from, and that kind of just grows, which is fine. And I was just spending time with the people that matter to me. I was making new friends and all of this stuff, and I know you were doing the same thing, but it's weird because you come back in and it's just instantly like re-triggering. Everything seems fresh. It's like ripping a scab off before it was maybe ready to be healed.
Yeah, I was ready. I was like feeling like myself again for the first time in a long time. And I remember people close with me asking, like, do you want to even be involved in this? Like, do you want your name to be on it? Like, it's going to bring you back
Mm-hmm.
in. And here I am being like, oh, I think it's going to be therapeutic because these are things that I'm still holding on to, like internally. And they were right because
Yep.
it brought me back entirely. It was and still has been kind of a hard time since all that resurfaced because now I'm talking about that again. And then I was talking about you again. Our names were connected again. And again, like supporting each other from afar, but not being able to have these conversations when we were the only ones that lived through, like everyone's experience is different. Ours was different than anyone else's, but the same. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I could just talk to him about it.
And a lot of it was together. We lived through most of it together.
We lived through all of it together, but no one else in the world, like even my friends, like everyone else that was on the show, none of them had the experience that we did. And that's why it was so hard to not be able to find comfort with anyone. No one else can relate to this, but you and I, you know?
Yeah. And so it was, you know, Nick and his horrible takes on things really kind of got in my head. And then I know you had gone on Meghan King's podcast, and I had Dr. Kirk Honda. I was on his show the same day I think you were on Meghan's show, and he and I talked extensively about this whole process and what it was like and all that too. So I know we were both kind of in our feels. Do you want to talk about your side? I'll share mine.
So I'm not like, so I've brought up some of Nick's drunk texts before, but they're always very nice. But I had done a podcast with Meghan King, and I had started like sobbing about like our relationship. And she's like, I think you guys still care about each other.
And I was on her show a few days earlier too.
Yeah.
And you were on her shows a few days before that.
So I like Friday night, I filmed that. And that same Friday night, I get a text from Nick, and it was the first time I'd heard from him in a long time. And it was like so weird. I was like, I can't believe that it's like literally the same night that I just started crying about this stuff.
And the same day that I was upset and crying about it as well. And and it's, you know, it's so weird. But then, you know, I had one too many maybe drinks that Friday night, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna say what I've been wanting to say, but it's easier after a couple drinks.
Yeah, the next day was the first day we actually had I think like a legit conversation in a very, very long time. And then I went over there drunk.
Well, to be clear, we
had talked the entire day. No.
I was going to say, so we had been talking all day, like first thing in the morning. I mean, you get up earlier than me, but first thing in my morning, which was like your early afternoon, we were, you know, texting back and forth and kind of connecting on some of this stuff. And it just felt, I mean, even before any drinking or anything like that, like I felt like we needed to at least find a way to get together and have a real conversation, and not just about the Business Insider and rehashing all this stuff, but just, you know, everything that we've been through.
Yeah. Cause we haven't been able to do that.
Exactly. And then the picture happened, which was, so that's when there was too much drinking at that point, when we were like, hey, let's take a picture together. And then we were like, hey, wouldn't it be funny to post it? And it was, we had cried a lot at that point.
The eyelashes on the shirt were real. Okay. Yes. The mascara.
Yeah. Someone thought they were eyelashes, but it was mascara on my shirt. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I very rarely even wear a white t-shirt because it's a recipe for something like that to happen. But so yeah, we posted that picture. We stayed up like 8 hours
because we hadn't talked in so long.
Yeah, we talked until 5 a.m. So it was,
had a lot to talk about, but it felt like no time had passed, but a lot of time had passed. It was like a weird feeling.
It's such a weird feeling. It's weird because, like, I mean, we'll get into this later probably, but like, it's weird because for the first, like, what is it, 30 seconds, a minute maybe, to walk up to my place. And from the moment you got there, like, I had this like tense ball in my gut. And then it was just getting tight. And again, it's like, I don't know, 30, 45 seconds. I live on the 4th floor. There's no elevator. So, you know, I'm just getting this tense, like, is this the right idea? Like, is it a good time? Is it all this stuff? And then I opened the door and it was like, nothing. It was like no time had passed. But that's how it was when we first met in the pods too.
That's true. Yeah. was like, oh, right, yeah, right back to it. I mean, I couldn't speak for maybe like 20 minutes because I was sobbing too hard, but
Hence
it
the
still
mascara
didn't,
on the shirt.
yeah, but it still didn't feel like it had been as long as it had been, you know? Like,
No. And, I think, I've told you this when we've been talking, but I've been feeling so stuck and like there was such unfinished
yeah,
business with us. And I always kind of in like the back of my head, even though I would say no, like there's no chance. I don't want to talk. I don't want you in my life because it's too hard. It's too painful. Here's the thing. And so you and I, and then, Jarrett and Ayana, like we're the only two people from this show, this experience that have,
hmm,
up to this point not worked out. And it's very hard to be in this world where like you're known for your relationship, and that's what you're known for, and
yeah,
not just by the public, but your friends and family like kind of identify you a little bit with this whole thing. And for me, it was like out of sight, out of mind was the only way I was going to get through this. So up until the reunion for season 4, which was just a fiasco, I was never going to watch Love is Blind again. I turn off all my alerts. I don't get Google alerts. I don't Google myself.
I did the same thing.
Yeah. Anytime my Love is Blind snuck through on my Google news feed, I would be like, stop showing me Love is Blind stuff.
Hmm.
I would tell people not to send me anything. Like I just wanted out of it. But I also felt like a little stuck. So it was very fulfilling and helpful to see you. And I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was going to be the case until you walked in. So then we took that photo. Didn't remember. I don't remember you posting it. Do you remember posting it?
No, like, because we were joking about it, and then the next day I woke up to like a shit ton of DMs, and I was like, "Oh, Danielle, what did you do?" And like literally, I waited like 2 hours to tell you. I was like, "Okay, so when we were joking about posting that picture, I actually did."
I knew that I knew that was a bad idea right away, but the best part about that was like my aunt who, I mean, she's older, texted me. She's like, I just saw a picture of you and Danielle all cuddled up on the news. Like, what is going on?
Because yeah, my friends and family were like, "When did you guys start, talking again? Like, how long has this
Yeah.
been? Why have you been keeping it a secret?" I'm like, "No, it's literally that day. Like, there's been
Yeah.
no secret. That was the first time we've seen each other."
Yeah. It's so funny. So let's go back to the beginning, right? So I wanted to get that out of the way. This is how we reconnected. This is how that photo happened. Lots of crying, lots of sadness, some drinking. I would like to go back to like before the show. Like we had a different casting process. Mine was quick. Yours was because of COVID.
Hmm.
I don't want to speak for you, but like longer.
Yeah.
But what was so both of us, our mental health took a nosedive from this experience for some of the same reasons, different reasons. What was yours like before that first time going into the pods, I guess?
I felt good. Honestly, I think the lowest point that I was in was high school, and I had worked so hard to get to the point that I was before filming, and I obviously all of that kind of crashed and burned during and after. But I remember like trying to convince you, like, I swear this isn't who I am. I was a different person before this. And it wasn't even until like recently that I started feeling like the person I'm not, but started feeling like the person that I was before going on the show. And I like kept trying to like, I promise you, I promise you. But it's impossible for someone who only knows you in those like very stressful like circumstances. Like how do you know whether or not to believe it? But right before, like I really liked myself. I think I was doing great.
What was different before?
So during the show and after the show, I had this like feeling, just like this very, very like physical feeling inside of me. And it was like actually like painful and it's hard to describe. And that and just losing my sense of self. Like the questions that you're asked in interviews, the things that people say about you, like, but it was mainly during filming. during filming, the things that people say to you almost become convinced that you are the person that they want you to be. And I did become convinced that, and that just like put me at an all-time low. Whereas before that, I was like, oh, I'm like awesome. Like I'm just like go with the flow, run, oh, my headphone, going through life. Yeah, it's just hard to describe like a completely different person. And it's like I can't convince you or anyone who I was before, but I'm finally becoming that again.
I remember you telling me at one point that before the show, you almost had like no anxiety. You were at a point where you were so comfortable and so happy that things didn't stress you out.
No,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. Where I was just chill. Like I
Mhm.
had absolutely no drama in my life. I was just going with the flow. I like I had no like I just was happy, you know?
Mhm.
And then I became an entirely different person than I was before the show. I came my high school self, in a
Mhm.
sense where I knew who that person was, but it was the version of myself that I didn't like.
I'm sorry. It's because I know how you feel about the person you were in
Yeah.
high school, but I'm sorry. Yeah, I would. I don't know if I would say that I was the. I think I said this earlier, so maybe I will say it. But I was in some of the best mental space that I had been in,
Mhm.
maybe ever. And you know, I had been doing really good things in therapy. COVID was hard. You know, my best friend's ex-wife, who I was friendly with and had known forever, died in the early parts of COVID unexpectedly. Like nobody found her body and like everyone was isolated. It took days to find it. And, you know, sorry to Tom when he listens to this, but that really stuck with me and kind of set me in this like really, um, lonely path of isolation during COVID. And I worked really, really hard to find, because what's always been important to my mental health, and again, I learned this in therapy, it's structure. So, like, I need to know I'm going to work out 5 days a week. Here's the times I'm going to do it. I need to know the days I'm going to have something to do, and then something I'm going to have to find something for myself to do. And when COVID happened, that all went out the window because I could no longer go to hot yoga 3 times, 4 times a week. That was really good for me. I no longer had an office to go to and spend most of my days in. I no longer had, the social interaction. And again, nobody had this stuff, but these were the things that kind of kept me okay and out of my depression. And so I did a lot of work during COVID to be like, hey, actually, like, sometimes being alone is my strength. That's when I come up with my best ideas or I think about the things that I want to do in the world and I start taking action. And so I started like kind of reframing it. And I wasn't really dating or anything, but like I was starting to feel like good about myself. And my career was going really well. And I spent a lot of time identifying myself with my career. Because that was, where I put so much of my focus in my 20s and 30s. So for me, like I was going on this show, I was like, got my job, got my house, got my dog, feeling good. Maybe this will work for me because I feel better than I think I've ever felt. And then I didn't get treated like you got treated by producers by any means. The stuff that you have shared, both to me and that I've heard, through other, interviews or sources, like it's disgusting. Like it is awful to ask someone.
Well, you were there for part of it.
I mean, yeah, but I think like the OTFs, the stuff
Oh,
that I
the
wasn't there
OTS or the
for.
interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. So OTFs, for those of you who don't know, a lot of my listeners actually found me
On the fly.
randomly. So yeah, on the fly interviews are the interviews where they basically like pull you off of set and ask you about what's going on in that moment. But what are some of the things, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the things they would ask you? Because it's awful.
Yeah. I mean, they ask you about past traumatic experiences in order to get a reaction. And like it started out all like appearance or body image. And I think that that's why in the beginning of the show, you see that like a huge, what I'm mainly talking about. And it was actually a scene with us that I was picking up my nail polish during that night dating thing where they figured out about like, that's when they really started focusing on my anxiety because I was doing that. And also I was having to put water on my wrist in the bathroom in order to try not to freak out. And so that's when all of the interview questions started focusing on anxiety and past traumas. I remember in the lounge, I was talking about being worried about certain things that had happened. And then, they're listening to you and they refocus their questions on that. So they'd be like, this happened to you in your past. Do you think you can ever trust a man based on that happening? You have all of this family baggage. Do you think that Nick will be able to handle that? Do you think that Nick would love you for, your anxiety? And I think they asked you that too. They were like, oh, do you think that you can deal with Danielle's anxiety?
And it's the words they use.
Yeah.
Deal with. We
Mhm.
all have baggage. We all have shit going on. Like if you're going to enter into a marriage, even a partnership or a friendship in a lot of cases, you're going to deal with someone's baggage. So it was just the framing of it just seems like it was designed, just the words used, the way they were used to elicit a reaction and elicit a thought that isn't a positive thought.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, like after going to trauma therapy or just connecting with other people, it's like if someone's bringing up your past traumas every day, like it re-traumatizes you. And there are certain things that gave me PTSD that I didn't even know I had PTSD until after the show when I was like talking about the things that they bring up all the time because I had repressed them from so long. But them saying that I don't deserve love or I won't be able to trust a man or find someone that I love based on things that were out of control that had happened in my past. Them saying, do you think you deserve Nick's love? Like them in asking me, like they once said like, oh, Nick doesn't know if he can deal with this and all of this kind of stuff where it's like, oh my God, like I already like was kind of hating myself for these things and they weren't even my fault. And now I'm like, oh my God, like I don't deserve love because of them. And it just,
and I never said that, but
no, I know you didn't.
I hope you know.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just what an awful experience. So as time went on, we were struggling, throughout. But I think one of the things that is so interesting, and you and I've talked about this 1,000 times, but we connected so quickly in the pods, and you kind of see it a little bit, but you don't get to see a lot of the deep connection stuff. You see some of the fun. We like to go to brunch. We got a little bit emotional about our family situations, and that was really important for us. But what do you think? How would you describe our pod experience together? Because I think there's a huge shift that happens when we get to Mexico.
It was so different. So we had different producers in the pods versus Mexico. And Nick and I fell in love pretty quickly. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, or wow, me and you fell in love so quickly. It is very weird you interviewing me, okay?
Weird. Well, we're interviewing each other. We're interviewing each other, and we're
interviewing each other, and we're divorced, okay? Like, this is weird. I like saying, okay, I like joking around and saying divorce. I'm sorry, that's a weird thing to do. No, but
it's a fact. It's not like you're lying.
I know. I don't know. It's like it was effortless between us in the pods. There was no drama, and they didn't try to force drama. And I remember like asking because I was like, to my producer, like, am I doing something wrong? Like, you're paying attention to all these other people, not me. And he's like, no, you guys are doing everything right. Like, we're not gonna mess with you guys. So
that's what mine said to me too. Because I'm like, hey, you don't talk to me. Am I doing something wrong? And she's like, no, you're actually doing it right.
Yeah. Like our pod experience was authentic. There was absolutely we didn't have one argument, and we had very serious conversations, and it's not like they were all 100% like awesome, but like we never once fought about them. We had like very mature conversations, but that's also because we were having them without any sort of outside, impact on them.
Yeah. That's what's so unique about the pod experience is like you are just focused on that. And I think too, Megan King said this to me on the show, on my episode that I was on. She's like, you and Danielle were like the parents to the crew, or not to the crew, but like the parents to the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Because, we hypothesized a little bit. Well, it's because we actually spent at least half, if not more, of the days in the pods building our relationship, and most people were trying to figure out who they were going to try and build a relationship with. So we had a little bit more of a foundation, I would say, and I think that's what's so interesting about the pods. And I've had plenty of times I've said, what was it? I'm like, it's the fucking pods. Like,
Yeah.
as crazy as it is, all we had to do for most of those days was think about what we wanted to know about each other, how we wanted to approach life. And we both thought, I don't want to speak for you, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we both thought we were going to be going home.
Oh, we did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were so boring.
No, yeah, we were the boring couple. I remember all the girls even telling me, we're not gonna lie, we thought you and Nick were getting sent home. We planned like a different vacation in the pods because towards the end, we were like playing drinking games. We were like doing shots, like cheersing against the pod wall. Like we were just,
Making
like,
balloon animals.
yeah, we had like towards the end of it, we were just like chit chatting, like we were already dating. It's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, we're getting the boot.
Yeah, I totally thought so too. But the weird thing is they actually isolate you. So after, and I've said this before in interviews, but after the reveal, you get 20, 25 minutes with your partner, of course. So we're sitting there at the reveal for 20 or 25 minutes, and that's all you get to see your fiance, right? That's all. And I remember we're sitting on the chair or the couch in the one area, and I'm like, don't look now, but there's like 30 cameras on us. And it's so that is crazy. Like, you don't have a moment together, and then you're isolated for 3 or 4 days to pack up, get tested for COVID, go to Mexico, get situated in Mexico before you see each other again. What I know that made me feel, but how did that make you feel during that time?
We both thought we were going to each other change our minds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like terrified. Yeah. Cause you're in this, you can't even talk to like the other girls. You're just sitting there. Like,
yeah. I'm
like in my thoughts marinating. I'm like, oh my God, like we just saw each other for the first time. It's kind of awkward too. It's like, like it's like there's a million people around. So I was 100% convinced that you had changed your mind. And then they switched our producers last second because I was told that I was going to have men for the pods. And then I was more convinced that he changed his mind.
So that was the weird thing too, is because, we're isolated, but I roomed next to Kyle and Sal, and we would try to sneak out in the hallways, and you didn't have a hotel key. So you could not like leave your room, or you would have to go ask the producer to give you, or the wrangler, I guess, to give you your key back or let you in your room. So I would like sneak out and talk for, 2-3 minutes at a time with Kyle and Sal. And I remember the first day, I'm like, this is great. She's beautiful and attractive, and I love her. And, I think she feels the same way. And then the more of these conversations I would have, because Kyle was like, so you don't have any doubt? I'm like, nope, no doubt. The doubt was there, and it trickled in. And then by the end, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm walking into in Mexico.
Oh my gosh. I was like, I had to sit down on the like bench before they could let me in. You had to stand there waiting for me for a while.
So then we got to Mexico, and they changed our producer. So not only that, so I think we both liked our producer. I know I liked mine. You liked yours?
I liked mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so we liked our individual producer. Yeah. Everybody gets an individual producer. You get, I think they produce 3 people on each side. So we liked both of our producers, and then found out we were getting a new one that was being brought in from another show that had not seen any of the footage or really know anything about what we had as a foundation and what got us there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And then I'll share mine.
I mean, one, he focused a lot of time and energy on things that had absolutely nothing to do with us. 2, I think one of the things that really like grinded my gears at the beginning is that he tried immediately building our relationship off of him having the same level of anxiety. And I think, one, I did show my anxiety right away because I was very, very upset that they switched my producer. And I was very convinced it was because Nick changed his mind. So I was like, like
I was
super
thinking the same thing.
Yeah, yes. And so I had a really bad feeling about it.
And I think I told you this, all the producers were fighting over us.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were, I heard that. I don't know if it's true, that they were all like wanting to be our producer, the ones that had worked with us, the ones that had seen us. I know we had actually.
They've said like some of them said we would have an entirely different experience if we would have had a different producer.
this is all in retrospect. Like that's the thing. While this is happening, you're in such a crazy pressure cooker
Yeah.
environment that we had no clue these things were happening. I know a lot of the stuff I look back on now and I'm like, oh, that was pretty obvious. I had no idea till the last 6 months when I really started thinking about how this impacted me. And it's crazy because you think about that. How do you have someone who doesn't know anything about your story of a couple that is engaged, that connected very quickly and had, essentially no issues whatsoever? And when we did, we talked through them in a healthy way and came to a conclusion that worked for both of us. And it was how it's supposed to be. So having that come, like when I look back on it, I literally think it was because we were boring and they saw an opportunity to drive a specific storyline that maybe went the way they want, maybe didn't, but they knew that they needed to do something because otherwise they weren't going to get very much.
Yeah. I mean, I could just think back to the reason why I wasn't invited or the panic attack and all of those things. And if that didn't happen, what it would have looked like.
So to recap Mexico very quickly for everybody knows, I think by this point that's listening to this, unless you haven't watched the show and you've found me through found the show through other measures. But when you're in Mexico, we arrived, we filmed day one, and then there was a COVID outbreak on the set and they had to shut us down for a day. I've said over and over, this was so good for our relationship because we weren't, although we could probably debate and speculate that maybe there were cameras and microphones in the hotel room, but we just spent the day together. We spent the day in the hotel room. We spent the day in the pool that was attached to our...
We got a noise complaint.
We got a noise complaint.
I broke a statue off the wall on accident and used it as a microphone. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Do you also remember that we were never going to say that because we didn't want to have to pay for it? But yeah. Yeah. Remember the peeping Tom next door too.
Oh, yeah. I will never forget him. I can still picture him as clear as day watching us in the pool.
Oh my. Well, we were like behind a little thing in the middle, like a divider from the bedroom side. Yeah. And I just remember I scooted back for just a second and I just saw him staring at us smiling. And I was like, oh my God.
It was, so weird. I could picture him as clear as day.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had that day. We had the best day. I think we had the best day ever. What was really interesting about that is the next day, woke up, we were fine. And by the way, we went through our 4 bottles of water. We had food because we ordered it through the TV. And I think we got it once. We got food once and then they shut it off and stopped responding to us. Is that right?
There was the first night. Yeah. So the first night we ordered a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of room service.
Yeah. We were starving.
Starving. And also we were really drunk.
Yeah.
Because remember we got there and there was this tall bottles of our favorite alcohol.
Oh yeah, there were 2 full bottles of hard liquor,
and we drank
1800 Don Julio. The next day, we woke up and we were fine. We knew we had to film that day, and then you got sick. Everybody always asks, "How do you think you got sick? Was she really sick? Was she hungover?" I don't think you weren't hungover.
So one thing I think about is so they had us film. So remember your butt was going to be out. They made us film a shower scene making out. And I was trying to still look okay too. So they came in at 6 a.m. the next day. So we're doing this make out thing in the shower and I'm swallowing water too. So I'm hungover. I'm swallowing water. I ate 100 pounds of room service the night before. So yeah, I don't know. Probably a mix of all of it.
Yeah. And I forgot about the shower scene because that was the one time I know for sure I was full-fledged just manipulated because I had no sleep. I was hungry. I was thirsty because that is nothing that I would ever do or agree to.
You were so mad. You're fine, because they wouldn't give up.
They wouldn't stop. Yeah. So anyway, so then you got sick and long story short, they wouldn't let you because stomach issues was a COVID symptom. And then they wouldn't let you go to the couple's reveal party. Now,
Yeah.
That we've talked about before. We were together the whole time. How are you possibly infected? I'm definitely not infected to the point where they didn't even give me a test. I don't think, unless I don't remember. We were tested, for those of you, like we were tested every day or every other day.
They didn't want to test you just in case, so you could still go.
On top of that, I went to the party for 2 or 3 hours. I come back, and first of all, they didn't do anything that we had agreed to. Like I had told them, like put, Nina outside because we liked her and she was a real person, and it would be good for you to have someone if you wanted to talk to someone while you're just sitting there and you literally have no phone, you have no TV, you have no internet, you have nothing. You're just sitting there with your thoughts. And so when I get back, they told me, okay, Danielle's sitting on the end of the bed. Go in there. She's not mic'd. Go in there, have a conversation with her, and make sure you stay close to her. Do you want to explain your time in those couple hours?
Yeah, no, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I tried escaping at one point, actually. I met a couple friends in the swimming pool. I hung out with them, actually went into their rooms, which was like a big no-no. I jumped out over the the pool thing, went to the lobby, and I was like, no, I can't get like my cell phone or any stuff. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I have to get out of this room because I felt so like I knew something was going to happen. So then I go back into the room and I have a panic attack in the closet. Like I go into the closet because I'm like, I don't know if the rooms are bugs. I don't know if they're filming me. And I hadn't had a panic attack in a while. Like that wasn't, like.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. So I was just out of my mind. And then when they came back, they were like yelling my name. I don't remember. They like couldn't find me at first.
No, I had no idea any of this went on until you told me. They didn't tell me.
So I was like, I just had a panic attack. I'm not filming right now. They're like, just sit here, blah, 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 blah. And that's when you came in and they told you to start talking about drama at the party. And that's when I was just like, I don't want to talk about that.
So here's my question that I just thought of yesterday. Well, I have two. One, Kinetic claims that they have rigorous protocols in place, and that's a direct quote, rigorous, to support people pre, during, and post-show. If somebody has a panic attack while filming, wouldn't that be a great time to introduce the mental health professional that they claim they have on set that's there during the show to come in and help you with tools to regulate, help you calm down, give you someone to talk to? Nothing, right? But you did get producers.
Yeah.
My other thought is you couldn't go film the couples party, but you could film in our private room with all the producers and the camera people and everybody there.
Wait, what? I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either until yesterday. How did they let us film that scene if you couldn't film anything?
The executive producer is the one who came in and said to my face, this close, you can't go to the couples party. Yeah. Our room was filled with like 100 people.
And you tested I just thought of it yesterday. It's crazy. So you couldn't come to the party because you put people at risk, but they can come to your room to tell this different narrative of whatever. And I still, to this day, I don't understand the purpose of that. And I understand there's nefarious possibilities as to why they did it. I get that, but
I have my conspiracy theory in my head, but
yeah. Well, we could do an episode called Love is Blind Conspiracy Theories.
They're always right. Mine are always right. I swear.
Yeah. So then, I had no idea. And as soon as I had figured out what was going on, I was pretty pissed off. I threw the microphone at the producers. I kind of hope it landed in the water. I don't remember. But that was rough. And then you and I talked through everything, and there was we had no issue with it.
It was not us versus each other. It was us versus them at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. But what happened the next day, I think people don't see everything that happens, right? You see little moments. What was the rest of Mexico like for us, I guess, and for you?
That's the thing is you see a snippet in time, right? And you saw me talking about the aftermath of a panic attack. I'm talking the world, not. And then the next day, it's not like the anxiety just goes away. The anxiety was because I didn't want to be there anymore. So the next day, this is like our second or third day ever, like even seeing each other. And I'm still having to like curl up in a ball. And I was kind of like still in that like vibrating mode where I kind of like, he knows what I'm talking about. And he wanted to be there for me so bad. So he would like hold me and I'm like, you don't understand, like the physical pain that is associated with when I feel like this is so bad. Like you can't touch me. And it's hard for some, like when you're in that emotional state with someone that you're engaged to and you love, but you also don't know them long enough to know how to like be with them when they're having like a panic attack or anxiety to that level where they're experiencing that physical pain. It's like
Well, that would have been another great time to get some support to be like, here's how
a
you navigate
therapist.
these situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone coming in and it's just like we were like left to our own to try and figure it out. And then the only thing that happened was someone that worked for the show coming in trying to convince us to stay because they thought he was going to lose his job. And I'm like, I don't feel okay. I felt like I was having a heart attack. Nick, you tried so hard and I still felt bad because you literally were like, what can I do? And I was like, nothing. But it's not nothing in a sense. And now you know me enough where it's like, when I say nothing, you know that nothing means that there is nothing in the world. Sometimes that can help me when it comes to another person. But in that moment, that must feel like shit, But it's just like those other things that you don't see that are films that are traumatizing are also like impossible for couples to figure out in the moment that add extra stress to a relationship or just like additional pressure to
Yeah.
everything.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And I didn't even know until later that you were still kind of reeling from this panic attack and it wasn't even, don't let me put words in your mouth, wasn't even the panic attack alone. It was just the stress of like realizing, oh my God, I'm engaged to someone after a couple of weeks and we're being filmed and I'm going to go home soon. And it's a lot. And the thing is you're making life altering decisions on this show every day. And they don't just impact you. They impact you. They impact your friends. They impact your family. They impact your job, all this stuff. And you just don't have the real world experience of how to navigate them. You just have the pressure cooker experience of how to navigate
And then
them.
just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
We got through Mexico, the rest of Mexico, and we're then back in the real world. And I'm using air quotes for people just listening, but we're back in the real world. All hell breaks loose, essentially. Like we're back to reality. We don't have really a whole lot going on. Let's talk about it.
Well, I'm thinking about now I'm going to cry because I'm thinking about the sad things that happened while, you're gone for, God damn. I cry so easily. You're gone for 3 weeks. You open up your phone and you miss like a very important 3 weeks of your life. And one, like, about, and we talked about it, but, one of my family members relapsed and that was like during the time of filming. I can't even pinpoint exactly when it had happened, but they were like, yeah, all of the conversations have been surrounding you and filming and getting engaged. And, you're going to have to be really sensitive around talking about all this stuff around him. And then I feel guilty. And then Piercy's mom got diagnosed with cancer while we were in Mexico, and I wake up to that, or I get my phone and I get that text and it's just like, you feel like it's only 3 weeks, but then it's like you miss like you can't be a friend. You can't be a friend. You can't be a family member. You're like, you're playing this character. And the only thing that you have the time to do is be in this bubble. And there's so many other things that are important going on in your life. And it's just like, those are stressors that could impact a person as like individually, let alone that's engaged and thinking about getting married that doesn't even know your family yet. And it's just like,
So yeah, it's a horrible situation to be in, and then you're forced into these like manufactured and controlled environments that you don't even really get the opportunity to react to these things. And that is where, for me, that's where I realized it got really weird, was when it was something like this, and instead of being with your family and supporting you and them, and like you're out getting drinks with friends and meeting friends and filming it. And it's like, not the vibe. It's not real life at that point, because that's not what we would be doing given the situation that we were in.
I didn't even have the time to do anything. Like, I didn't have the time to be there for my family. I didn't have the time to even see Piercy when he was going through all of that stuff. I couldn't even talk about it because the reason.
One of your best friends. Yeah.
Yeah. My best friend. And that's just like, what's so hard is like, in those situations, you typically would put everything on hold too.
Yeah. All to film a reality TV show while people are suffering.
It's like, give me one day off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the cake tasting day was, so my family dog, my dad's dog, unexpectedly passed away in a pretty tragic and traumatic experience. And that dog was my dad's best friend. Like, my dad never remarried. He lived, at the time he lived with my sister and nephew while she was going through her divorce. She was staying there, but like, this dog was a huge, huge thing to my dad, and the unexpected passing of it, I was very concerned, just about my dad in general and how he was going to handle it, how my nephew was going to handle it. He was 5 years old or 6 years old, maybe at the time, how he was going to handle it. And, that's a traumatic event. And in real life, you would do something about that. But here we did a cake tasting where I didn't want to be there.
I didn't
want to be there. We didn't have time to learn how to navigate something like this or what this actually meant to either of us in either of our situations and our families. And instead it's like, go film the cake tasting. And so you're just on edge and you're not even there. We've all been irritable about something and taking it out on someone, and that's just human nature. But to be put in that situation when, these events are going on, it's difficult to sit there and have a conversation about cake.
Yeah. It's like, talk about this, talk about this, talk about this. It's like, no, like, actually I should be at my dad's house right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was another thing that like, like recently, or I recently came to like the realization of is like, on the car ride to cake tasting, I didn't know, the level of impact that Nick's dad's dog that had on his family, because I had met his dog or his nephew, and I'm talking to an audience and not you. And I feel like it's so weird because I don't know which one to do. Because it's like, part of me is like, I don't know. I didn't know how much your dad losing his dog would impact you, your family, because I met your dad, your family, your nephew. And I remember meeting them for the first time. And that's when I had an epiphany, because all they talked about was the dog. Mm-hmm. And, Oliver just being like, oh my gosh, like, I wish you would have met it. And it's just like, that broke my heart. And you think back like, wow, we were cake tasting, aggravated with each other. When in reality, if I would have known your family, I would have pivoted everything. But it's just like one of those things where you just don't even have the time to.
But we didn't have a choice.
Yeah. So like, no, just like, it doesn't set you up for success in those instances. Because we straight up said before that cake tasting thing, like, we don't want to do this.
Yeah. So that's the difficult thing that people experience in reality TV is when real life actually happens, you have to film a TV show instead. Mm-hmm. But speaking of dads, neither one of our dads wanted to be filmed or wanted to be on the show, which is totally understandable. My dad thought it was some orgy show before I explained to him the concept. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I was so scared to tell him. And he's like, so wait, this isn't some sort of bachelor orgy show? Sorry to all my bachelor comrades out there. I don't think your show is an orgy unless it's Bachelor in Paradise. But I'm just kidding. Never even watched it. But yeah, so he was fine after I explained to him the concept and that I wasn't just in orgies, I guess. But yeah, so we wanted to meet our dads because we were not going to get married otherwise. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I I don't think they enforce this, but the idea is that you're not supposed to really see each other or talk to each other a few days before the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And we were saying, then you're getting a hard no, because I'm not going to marry, or you're not going to marry someone. I'm not going to marry someone without meeting their family.
I would never get married to someone without my dad meeting them. And we didn't have the time to do that until 2 days before the wedding, because we're filming cake tasting or waltz dancing or these like other things that weren't even shown. But like these are like really important things.
And so, yeah, so we were like, well, you're going to get a no if you don't let us go see the dad. So we did. We spent one day. Wait, did we do it the same day?
No.
That would have been a lot.
My air conditioning was off and you're sweating through your shirt. Remember?
Well, yes,
when my air conditioning broke in the car.
Remember, I put like my water bottle or whatever I had. Like,
I have a video of that. Like, to put like a little clip of the picture. You look like the hunchback, and you're like driving like this with the water bottle.
That was a nightmare. It was like 90 degrees. It's like never this hot this early in the year in Chicago. But that and the wedding day, the sweating. It's classic, of course. That's my luck, though. I'm a walking piece of irony. Like everything works out that way. So then we met our dads, and we were feeling good about it. But we kind of put our foot down on that. But there's another day that happened on the Riverwalk, and I think there's a number of things going on in here, including hours of footage that never even made it. Like, why were we walking on the Riverwalk? Well, there were. We're filming in Chicago, and the media is crazy about all the crime in Chicago. We do have some we were talking about it earlier, like crazy stuff going on here right now. But, the Riverwalk happened, and, this is more the beginning, at least, is more your story, because I wasn't even there at the beginning.
Yeah. So the infamous Riverwalk fight. So we were doing a Meet the Friends scene. We actually filmed one with both Nick's friends and my friends, your friends and my friends. But so
and neither got aired.
No, neither got aired because we didn't dance on tables, I'm assuming. So
I think the reason they didn't get aired was because
your friends were crazier than mine.
Yes.
That's why.
But they were definitely trying to tell the narrative of you and your friends being immature and me, being uptight and stuff like that. And it just wasn't like the friend stuff went great.
Yeah. They should have showed that, because that's like a part of the reason that we wanted to say yes, because we all got along so well. Like we would hang out with each other's friends off camera, that was one of my big things is like everyone being able to integrate friends. And we did that like right away. You went to my sister's birthday party right away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that wasn't just filming. Like the week the show came out, we took, 10 of our friends. We went to Airbnb, went to Wisconsin Dells. Yeah. Went to a water park, spent the weekend together. Like, we all got along so well.
Yeah. So we filmed this like scene, right? And so it was a Meet the Friend scene, and you, Nick, had to work. And so my friends and I were at this.
I was interviewing at the time. Yeah, that's right. I went to Soho House. Yeah, I went to Soho House for an interview.
So my friends and I were at this like tiki bar, and we had tequila shot after tequila shot after tequila shot, and we all blacked out. Like none of my friends remember that entire scene. Like the next day, we're like, "What the fuck happened?" Because they were like, "Are we going to be on camera looking that drunk?" And thank God for them, it didn't air. And so then, you, Nick, you show up, and we talk, we all hang out for a little bit, and then they have us go and walk over by.
And it went great.
Yeah,
it went great.
The friend meeting thing went great, and that's why nothing aired about it. So yeah, so like everyone gets along super well, but I'm like wasted.
We played some games.
Yeah. Bags. So then we go over to the Riverwalk, and you literally warned me like, be careful. You're really drunk right now. And then
I remember that.
All of a sudden, like all hell breaks loose. And I have not watched this scene. I don't remember it.
Well,
there's bits
here's
and
what I can. Here's what I can tell you. And I think I know I've already told you, but like a conflict started because of something that had happened maybe 2 days before, but we had already resolved it. Like we had talked about it, but it was off camera, and they do not like that. They do not like you having anything happen off camera.
Yeah.
In so much that we had to redo a scene
Making up.
that was totally manufactured, making up, because we made up off a camera and they didn't like that.
I remember having to they were like, you stand at the countertop and look over here. Danielle, you stand at the window and look over here. And we were laughing because we weren't fighting. So we literally had to look mad at each other, and we were dying, and it took so long because we weren't even mad at each other.
Yeah. So then what happened on the Riverwalk was crazy because we're sitting there having, honest to God, I don't remember how it started.
I do.
How did it start?
He who should not be named yelling, what were you guys fighting about the other day? Didn't Nick say this, or this? Yeah. And then my drunk ass is like,
yeah. Yeah. And then because that one literally seems out of nowhere in the way that they edit it in the show, and they don't show any of the context beforehand. And then you left, and I was like, fuck this. And I went into the outhouse, and I'm like, are you guys going to follow me in here? Because they're just following you. And by the way, they were out of their time. They were paying overtime
to continue to fight. Film this fight.
Yeah. They paid the whole crew, the whole union crew, by the way, overtime.
I was staring at the cameras because you don't air the footage. And I'm like, I know you're not going to air this. Leave me alone. So then finally I run away. And I'm wasted. I was like, I need to get away from these people. So I'm booking it down the literally downtown and busy streets in Chicago, right in the downtown. And Nick is like, you are are you really going to let her just run the middle of the street downtown at night?
I'm like, this is Chicago.
Someone go after her. So finally, one of the Wrangler PAs or something starts finally then going after me. But no one, they were just going to let me
wander wherever. They didn't know that your apartment was over there either. So
I didn't go to my apartment.
That's the thing.
I ran the opposite direction. I went to Giordano's.
So, yeah. So that was the whole thing. And so again, these rigorous protocols show themselves where unless I tell them to do something or you tell them to do something, they ain't going to do it. Yeah. So they were literally going to let you just wander the streets of Chicago. So
because I thought I don't know. I was trying to run away from them because I didn't want them to follow me. So I wasn't going to go where they knew where I lived. My friends were at Giordano, so I went this way. And then I ran home.
Yeah. That was shortly before the wedding day. And I always thought to myself on that day before, because I worked that day. Did you work that day?
I worked that day too. We couldn't take, well, they told us, so this is funny. They told us our wedding was going to be on Sunday. Literally a couple days before, they told us they were changing our wedding day to Tuesday. A lot of my friends couldn't take off. A lot of my family couldn't take off. Your dad couldn't. They sent our entire family and friends Shane and Natalie's wedding invite.
Yeah. Because it was so disorganized. So then the wedding day, you and I had spent a lot of time. We met each other's parents. We went back and forth a little bit. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is I remember, it sucks. I remember all of this as it was yesterday. So we were back and forth the entire time. Because obviously we knew the way that to not be too corny, but this is corny. We knew the way we felt in our hearts, but only I could know the way that I felt in my head. And I kept trying to say
and me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I'm just I am fucked up right now. And so when we went to meet my dad, he could sense it. And he was just I think Danielle is going to have to work on herself a little bit more. And if she's put in this box, it's not going to work if you wanted to, the longevity. Do you remember my dad saying this? He's
oh yeah. And he's I think you two should put some structure in place for how you're going to be after the show. You don't have to say yes. It doesn't mean you can't get married. Get a date night on the calendar every week, talk about the things you're going to do together and separate. He was very smart about the whole thing. He was much more helpful than kinetic. We should have.
Oh no. My dad was he's I think it's best if you guys date. She needs some time to work on herself. And everyone was Danielle, we could, my family was we can tell you're not all there right now. But obviously no one else has seen me and through all of my ups and downs and like the lows that I've had or the highs that I've had. And so we, after meeting like my dad, both of our parents, we were up the entire night drinking wine on the phone, deciding whether or not we were going to say yes or no. Like Nick is on his rooftop. I remember him. I could hear the wind in the background, Grayson up there too, literally all night and all morning. Like, what do we say?
Yeah. Yeah. And we both went back and forth. We both changed our mind a few times. And it was that day, I just remember like I was so irritable that day because the producer just kept asking, where's your head at? Where's your head at? I'm like, it's in this meeting I'm about to hop into. And, it's like, well, what are you thinking? And I'm like, I'm thinking that I've got a meeting with my PR agency at work that we've got some big decisions to make.
No, we had to work that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were like out of vacation days because we had to keep taking random days off. We worked our wedding day.
Yeah. So I remember, I actually don't even know if I've ever told this. I had wedding day, I was no for most of the day. And I started thinking to myself a few things. One, I'm like, I really want to say yes. I'm only a no because you honestly, like you and your dad, like kind of convinced me to be a no. And I didn't want to be a no, but I was kind of there. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, we may go through this and we may come out the other side.
This is sad.
I know. I don't even know if I've told you this, to be honest, but I thought to myself, like seeing you in your wedding dress, being walked down the aisle by your dad in front of the whole world and saying no, like I didn't want to do that to you. And I didn't want to do that to our relationship because I knew we loved each other.
You can't say yes because you don't want to do something to someone else.
No, that's not what I'm saying. So then I started shifting the way that I was thinking. And I was like, I've been a yes from like day 4 or 5. Why am I a no now? And yes, it gets a little more real, right? We signed the marriage certificate at this point.
Yeah.
All of this stuff. So I was sitting there and I remember stupid, got all choked up about how you make me feel and how I feel seen for maybe the first time in a relationship. And I'm like, why would I not want to spend the rest of my life with this person? And I'm like, I do. So why the fuck am I thinking about saying no? And then I immediately started texting you, and you're supposed to give your phone, a little BTS that's going to get me sued, but you're supposed to give your phone a few hours before the wedding to the producers so that you can't communicate with really anyone. And, they want to put you in that isolation. And I remember I said, I'm like, if you want a yes, any chance of a yes, you need to let us keep talking. And I remember I'm not going to name my producer. I hope it doesn't get her, but she was like, so you mean you're working? I'm like, yeah. And she let me keep my phone.
Let me keep mine too. And he's not going to fire.
Yeah. So we texted and we're like, okay, yes, let's do this. Both of us want it. Why are we like fighting it? And that was, I even remember like, I was so sure.
You're walking out of the car.
Yeah, I know. And I remember I'm going to say yes so fucking fast. I'm going to give my vows so fast so they have nothing to edit. And I know how editing works, and I was still stupid enough.
You literally said that.
I know. And I'm like, I don't want them to have the opportunity. They found ways to edit because I didn't think so much about they edit out of order and they'll edit me standing there listening to you, but it's really me waiting for you to come down the aisle. So we said yes. And that was, honestly, the biggest exhale.
Oh, no, yeah. It felt like a huge cloud had been finally lifted that you had inside of you the entire time, like a bubble popped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I said
that was what happened when you texted me though.
Yeah. I said that in my vows. I'm like, I feel like this is a huge exhale that I've been holding on to my whole life.
We're in the car on our way, completely dressed up, about to walk down the aisle. And I remember you saying should we say yes? I'm like, yes. And so we just found out, and we had told my friends and family that it was going to be a no. Because like we went into it, we're like, we're going to say the same thing. No matter what, we're going to be on the same page. We're going to stay engaged. Like we're going into this united. And I remember when we said yes, there was someone who screamed, "What?" in the audience, one of like my family members, and everyone's like, yeah. But they're like, it sounds like she's going to say yes. It sounds like he said yes. Wait, is this actually happening? Like no one knew.
Yeah. I mean, that day was a crazy, and it was so hot, and I was sweating, and I sweat a lot. You know this. Everybody who's watched it knows. But holy cow, the stress of sweating, knowing how that was going to be portrayed, made me sweat more. Made me sweat through my wool suit. I mean, it was. I'm still actually convinced that they CGI'd some of my sweat out, because I remember being a lot sweatier, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, out. Oh, okay. Also, Nick said yes first. You said, and that's another thing, because I told them, I was like, of course, always anxious. I was like, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And if he changes his mind, you have to make sure that he says yes first, because I don't want to say the opposite thing as him. So we were on the same page, but like he said, we were back and forth the entire time, but you said yes first.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't deal with the anxiety of saying yes or no first. But then it's like the do.
Yeah. So we said yes, but that's only half of the story to where we are now. So why don't we wrap up today and say we're going to do post-wedding on the next episode, and we'll talk about how it was coming back to reality without any support, public backlash, why we did the reunion or after the altar. Does that sound, and then, ultimately what led to our separation and how has life been post that? Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds a little scary, but
yeah, I know it's a lot to cover, but so just in case people don't come back for part 2, where can they find you?
Me?
Yeah. Your Instagram.
Tagged in your pictures.
Tagged in the photos and tagged in this episode. It's all down below. So thank you so much for part 1, and we'll get to part 2 very soon. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.